what I did was kind of categorize our different layers of consciousness. And some of this is philosophical, but it gives me a way to categorize it so I can make it teachable and give you different processes to work with each one. It's my philosophy that we're spiritual beings, and because of that, our higher mind is the part of us that kind of sticks out of our body like an antenna and connects with the infinite field, the unified field, which scientists are still trying to come up with a mathematical model for. And the unified field is just the energy that connects everything and everyone, including the spiritual realm with the earth plane. Scientists are still trying to figure it out, and that's why things like the Large Hadron Collider are still going on. They're trying to figure out all the components of energy and figure out how everything interrelates together. If you're a spiritual person, then this is the part of you that you're really tapping into when you do your spiritual practices. This part of you only knows the truth, and it is literally a spiritual channel. And this is where we can get a lot of our non-local intuition. And non-local intuition is intuition that comes from an unexplained knowing. Has nothing to do with pattern recognition or memory retrieval, which is what regular intuition is. That's the type that the traditional scientific model studies, and looking at how the conscious mind and the subconscious mind work together to bring up old memories or see patterns in situations, so it helps you intuit something. This is different. This is non-local intuition. And I can literally give you examples. When I went to Sedona, it's a place where I go for a spiritual journey. It's where I connect with the divine. And I met a person there, her name's Natalia, and she basically is clairvoyant. She's an artist, and she paints, and then while she's painting, she gets in the flow, and she gets messages for you, and she's a very spiritual person. So this is coming from a very pure place, a place of love. And so while she was painting my picture, she said, it wasn't a picture of me, it was actually of a butterfly, but while she was painting it, she said, I see you going to Germany to get a medical device. And I said, okay, I don't have any plans to go to Germany. I went home and I went back to work. I was on the night shift, and there was a Family Practice Mayo resident working with me that night, and that's how we met. He's a good friend of mine now. But he came up to me at the end of the shift and said, hey, I hear you're in alternative medicine. I said, yes, are you? And he said, well, my parents have a clinic in Germany. They're actually a world-class alternative medicine clinic that gets Saudi princes and things like that. And so he grew up with that. And so we were chatting, and he wrote down 2 websites on a piece of paper and handed it to me. One was his father's website for his clinic, and the other was www.ondemed.net. And it turns out Ondemed was a medical device I used in my practice that was made in, guess where? Germany. So this happened about 2 to 3 weeks after I got back from Sedona, this experience. And Natalia picked up on it, and she's actually a good friend of mine to this day. But how could she know that? There's no way she could have pulled that up from a memory retrieval or a pattern recognition out of her subconscious or her consciousness. I never mentioned anything I never told her I was looking for a device or anything like that. So this came through her higher mind, her spiritual self, her spiritual consciousness, from the unified field, which is everything and everyone, the energy, because there is no empty space. That's the paradox. You call it empty, but it's teeming with energy, because our universe, guess what, came from energy. That's what the Big Bang was. And at a few seconds after the Big Bang, there was nothing but energy. The heat was so intense, hotter than the center of our sun, and eventually things started to cool and mass started to form. Now, I don't take away the spiritual component of creation. I think there's a best of both worlds, actually. There's the science and the spirituality, and where the two merge is where we're going to find the true answers. So, this is the spiritual mind. I think y'all get it. You're starting to know what non-local intuition is, and I can give you one other example. That wasn't my non-local intuition, that was Natalia's, but after that, I had always believed that it was possible, but that was proven to me that day, or later, when it was shown to me. So it became part of my belief system. And after that, I had one other experience, actually several others, but one other one was when I was with starting resident center in Jacksonville Beach, my integrative medicine center, and I had Brenda Dyson come by because she said, I need to come meet you. I'd like to consider working at your clinic. I'd never met her. I'd never heard of her. So she came by, and she was a massage therapist and a craniosacral therapist. And I said, well, okay, let me let you do work on me so I can make sure you're fit. So she started massaging me, and then I got really relaxed and went into a very deep meditative state, and then she did the craniosacral work. And as she was doing that, I kept hearing Andy. I kept hearing Andy, and I had never had an experience like that. This is really adamant. I'm going to ask her if she knows somebody named Andy. But I was also hearing Andy's sister. Andy and Andy's sister. I kept hearing the two. And when we were done, we went outside in the waiting area, and I said, do you know a guy named Andy? And she said, no, but my best girlfriend in Maryland is Andy. And it kind of takes your breath away when you have an experience like that. And then I said, well, what's going on with Andy's sister? And she said her sister just entered hospice with end-stage breast cancer. So I get chills telling you about it because it was a very powerful spiritual experience for me. It shows you can tap into the spiritual realm while you're on the earth. What literally happened was my higher mind, because I was so relaxed and so open to something beautiful like that, that I had that experience, and my higher mind tapped into the unified field, which included Brenda, and that was heavy on Brenda's mind. She wasn't trying to bring it into my session, but it was heavier on her mind, and I picked up on the energy. Now, I don't have those types of experiences every day. If I did, I'd probably have a television show, but I honestly believe I'm allowed to have those experiences so I can share it kind of like a testimonial. And it's not a traditional religious type of testimonial. It's kind of very broad and open, but it is a powerful story. And I want you to know that you're capable of those experiences. And I would probably say you've had some. And everybody's had synchronicities pop into their life or an unexplained knowing. And what you're doing is your higher mind is tapping into the unified field, bringing in non-local intuition, and guess what receives this? It's not the brain. It's not the brain that receives the non-local intuition, it's your heart. And the Heart Math Institute has been around for many, many years, and they're on the cutting edge of research as to how the mind and the body work. And they really study the heart and heart rate variability, which is the beat-to-beat variation of your heartbeat. And they understand that the heart has its own mind. It literally has its own brain, because think about it, when it's cut out of the body and placed as a heart transplant into another person, they've severed the vagus nerve, the main nerve to the heart. They've severed the spinal nerves, the nerves that regulate its function. So when it's brought out of the body, it's functioning on its own. And that's why it's got its own brain, its own nervous system. And that is what I call your heart mind. It's not only physical, it's emotional and spiritual, because you know when they talk about having a heart-centered life and engaging people with your heart, it's solid science that is the legitimate deal, because it has its own consciousness. How could it not? It's part of your body. Your entire body is conscious. And so what HeartMath shows through their studies, and we're going to go into this, how this study worked, but they literally show through scientific methods that your heart mind receives the intuition first. Then it transmits it to your conscious mind. And then your eyes pick it up. And the experiment is pretty fascinating. This is heart rate variability. This is the beat-to-beat variation of the heart. Next week, I'm going to show you an app that you can use to monitor your heart rate variability and objectively show how well you're doing with your meditation practices and balancing your autonomic nervous system in your body. Your autonomic nervous system is totally tied into your heart rate variability, because this is an indirect reflection of balance in this system. And this system consists of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic arms. This is your autopilot. This is the part of your nervous system that's regulating your body without you consciously thinking about it. So it regulates your breathing, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your digestion, releasing pancreatic enzymes, releasing bile. You're not consciously regulating that. This part of your nervous system is. It has two arms, sympathetic, parasympathetic. The sympathetic is the fight or flight. You've heard that term before. It's the stress response. The parasympathetic is the rest and digest, and it's the relaxation response. And that's what I want to have you trigger when you do your relaxed breathing and when you do your meditation and your prayer and your mindfulness practices. I want you to trigger that relaxation response, because when you do, it helps balance your autonomic nervous system, because most of us are predominantly in a sympathetic nervous system tone because of everyday stressors and worries and kids and jobs and finances, etc. So we're skewed in this way, the vast majority of people. That's why it's very important to do practices like mindfulness, meditation, diaphragmatic breathing to bring your parasympathetic tone up to match the sympathetic. Because if you stay in a sympathetic predominance, it's going to eventually result in a breakdown of your body's systems. Stress exacerbates any acute or chronic disease or illness process. So we need to use mindfulness, meditation, diaphragmatic breathing to bring up your parasympathetic to balance it out. This immobilization response, I talked to you about that last week. It's kind of a mixture of sympathetic and parasympathetic, where you're so stressed you can't move. You're stuck. Like you can't even get out. You know, like I used the example of an airplane landing with a fire in the back, and you just sit in your seat and the door's open and people rush out, but you stay seated. That's because you're so stressed you have an immobilization response. What happens when you start using breath work and meditation to balance your nervous system? It makes it way less likely that you're ever going to have that type of experience, that you will just be frozen, because you will have practice going into a relaxation, balancing your nervous system so that immobilization never kicks in. We're also going to talk about how you can use your heart, consciousness of your heart, to balance your emotions. Meaning if you're struggling with a recurring theme of regret or anger, I'm going to show you a method to go through your heart consciousness to help at least balance it out, if not help eradicate it. And then conscious mind and subconscious mind, how they are related. This is your everyday thinking, analytical, caught up in your mind, monkey mind. This is conscious mind. Subconscious, kind of a correlate with your autonomic nervous system in that it's your autopilot. It's the part of your consciousness that's helping to regulate your autopilot. And a lot of times we have things stuck in our subconscious that we don't even know are there, like limiting beliefs that originate in childhood. And I'm going to show you a method how to remove those limiting beliefs down the road. But consciousness, conscious mind, subconscious mind, that's where beliefs versus truths are, because not every belief is a truth, despite having that belief. I'll help you learn a process to discern which is a truth and what's not. We're going to talk about the placebo and nocebo, the true science behind the power of belief. The research is mind-boggling. It really is. And then finally, DNA mind, that's just one I made up because I haven't seen anybody call it that. But my emphasis here is that I'm using it as a way to categorize how your thoughts, how your autonomic nervous system balance, how your thoughts that trigger relaxation literally change how your genes turn on and off. With the study that showed the group that listened to a guided meditation 15 minutes a day for 8 weeks, they literally, when they tested their DNA analysis at the end of the 8 weeks, they literally had genes that changed. Their genes had now turned on that were triggering less oxidative stress, reducing your overall inflammation and improving your mitochondrial resiliency, the batteries of your cell, and also that was an anti-aging effect because it was resulting in a preservation of the ends of your chromosomes called telomeres. And I know that's a lot of science, but I really want to drive it home because I want you to see how powerful your mind is in influencing dis-ease or wellness in your body.